One of the greatest issues you're going to deal with when you start to go to work for yourself, which I assume you're going to do in this thing, is how to price yourself and price your work. This is tough because there is no direct formula for doing it, but there are certain parameters that you have to work with. And I want to try and explain these to you in this little piece of video. First of all, when it comes to pricing, that's a function of two things. A, how good is your material? I mean, if you're Steven Spielberg, you price one way, and if you're a student filmmaker at NYU, you price another, even though you're making a feature film. And the second one is, how much does your client have to spend? And of course, this makes a big difference. If you're doing something for a nonprofit, you charge one thing, and if you're doing something for Verizon or Time Warner, you charge something else because they can afford it. And therein, there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of stretch and reach in terms of how to price yourself. But this doesn't help you to get down to that bottom line of how much should I charge. So let's look at it this way. If you're just getting started in the business, I think one of the best things you can do is either underprice or frankly give your stuff away for free in the beginning. I know a lot of people say don't do this, but I don't agree. The first thing you want to do here is you want to establish yourself and give yourself a reasonable track record. And if you can get a couple of projects that you do for free or for a minimal amount, just so you can get A, some experience, because the more you do, the better you're going to get, and B, you can build kind of a reputation and a body of work you can show to other people, it's worth doing it. And assuming you've gotten to that point and you've got a website and you've got links where people can look at your stuff and you start to approach clients, then the next question becomes, when I start to charge, how much should I charge? This is also, more than anything else, a function of what is the project and how much can the client pay? This is what we call comps. I mean, if you're in the real estate business and you want to sell a house or buy a house, you look at what the comparable values are in the neighborhood, and it's pretty much the same thing here. So if somebody approaches you to do a video project, you should look at what the comps are for what a business that size normally pays for these things. Now, the great advantage of being a VJ is that you don't have any overhead or next to overhead. I mean, you don't have a cameraman, sound man, producer, director, camera crew, all that expensive equipment, and an edit suite. So right away, you're at a competitive advantage. So if a professional camera crew would charge, say, $20,000 to do a video, you can come in at 10 or 12 or 15 or even 7 or 8, depending upon how young you are in the business and how much you want the work, as long as you deliver a product that is perfect. This is really the bottom line. No matter what you charge, the final product has to be perfect, and it has to be perfect every single time. Nobody wants to pay less to get a piece of junk. What they want to do is they want to pay less to get something that is as good as the guy with the cameraman, the sound man, the producer, the office, the edit, the overhead, the receptionist, and all that kind of stuff could also deliver. They have a lot of fixed costs. You don't have fixed costs. What you have is your time, and what is your time worth? Your time is worth whatever you think it's worth to charge. I know that sounds a little abstract also. You'd rather have me come and say $1,000 a minute, $500 a minute, $5,000 a minute, but that wouldn't be an honest answer. The honest answer is what you are willing to get for your work, and that depends upon where you are in your career and what your needs are, how much time you think it will take. So the best way to approach this thing is to look at the project as a whole. Think to yourself, how long will it take me to do this thing? And of course, if you look on thevj.com, you'll see we have whole sections devoted to budgeting, but in a macro sense, how many days is it going to take me to do this? How many times am I going to have to shoot? And then what expenses are involved? How much travel, gasoline, car, all that kind of stuff. Add that up together and go, here's what it's going to cost me. Objectively, 3 days of my time, I have to travel, I have to fly, I need a hotel, I need a meal, whatever the thing is. I'm going to edit it. How long is that going to take? Sit down and figure out how many hours that's going to be. And then you say to yourself, how much do I expect to make? What would be a good year for me? $70,000, $50,000, $150,000? And based on that parameter, you can figure out what your time is worth. Once you understand what the cost is to you, what the expenses are to you, real expenses like travel, airfare, hotels, and your time, and how much you think your time is worth, $20 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour, depends on where you are in your career, then at least you'll have a baseline below which you cannot drop. So you look at that number and you go, okay, to do this project, it's going to be 3 days. Here's what my time is. I need at least $5,000 to get this thing done. Then if you go and you go, the comps for this thing are $20,000 or $30,000. That's what other people are charging, and that's easy enough to find out. You should come somewhere in the middle. A little lower in the beginning, a little higher later on. This is the best way to price yourself and price your work. Once you've established a baseline of price, you can't go up. You can actually only go down. So when you make an offer to a client, you want to be aware that they may negotiate and you may end up 10 or 15 or 20% below where you were. But in my opinion, as long as you're making something, it's better than making nothing. Monday and Tuesday are going to go by anyway. You may as well make yourself a couple of $100, a couple of $1,000 as sit at home and do nothing. So that's my advice for pricing yourself. If you have a specific project that you're interested in and you want our help with pricing it as a member, we're happy to help you. Just shoot us an email and give us the parameters and we'll give you a pretty good ballpark idea of what we think the comps are at least. So that's my advice for pricing. I hope this was worthwhile and I hope to see you soon.